A few weeks ago when I shared our full modern pergola build, some of you were very concerned about the lack of shade. But I told you not to worry because I had a plan. You should know me better than that. Keep watching to learn how I made these adjustable swag shades on a budget. This video is sponsored by BetterHelp. I've seen swag type shades that you can retract before, but they're really expensive, and I knew I could make them myself for a lot less money. In order for the shades to be able to slide back and forth, I need to create a railing system between the front and back beams. To do this, I picked up a bunch of stainless steel twisted cable. This is the kind of cable that you would use if you were doing cable railings on your stairs. I actually created a bed with a cable railing headboard a few years ago. I'll leave a link in the description if you want to check that project out. To secure the end of the cable to the beams, I picked up some special cable railing hardware. They basically are little mounting brackets, and then they have this tube which you insert the cable into, and then to secure the cable I have to use what's called a swaging tool to swage, basically crush the tube symmetrically around the cable, locking it in place. You can get swaging tools on Amazon for pretty cheap. I think this one was like under 20 bucks for a manual one. They work great, they're just a little slow and tedious. Once I get the first end of each cable swaged onto the hardware, I'll get them up and then I will show you how the other end, the adjustable end of the hardware works. I went ahead and made myself a little jig, just a board with the designated holes in it, so I don't have to measure all 24 sets of holes around the perimeter. All I have to do is center my jig in the opening and pre-drill my holes, then I can mount my hardware. If this is the first time you've watched a Pneumatic Addict video, I want to say welcome. I'm glad you're here. Take a second to make sure you hit that subscribe button and bell down below. That way you'll never miss one of my DIY projects. Now that the cables are attached on one side of the pergola, it is time to pull them over and attach them to the opposite beam. In order to get our tension right, we have to use special hardware. These are turnbuckles. It has the same swaged end like the first set of hardware does, but it also has an adjustable two-way screw in the middle, which allows us to adjust the tension of the cable to get it nice and tight. So what we want to do is we want to get our cable almost to perfect length, just a tiny bit loose, mount the bracket, and then we can turn that turnbuckle, pull the cable extra tight. I'm not gonna lie, the manual swaging tool is a little tough to use if you don't have strong hands. You can buy pneumatic or battery-powered swaging tools, or in my case, I just asked my husband Bryce to give me a hand. Once the cables were roughly to length and screwed to the opposite beam, I used the included wrench and a screwdriver to tighten the turnbuckles, pulling the cable tight. Trying to get projects done during an Arizona summer is not for the faint of heart. It was so stinking hot while I was outside working. I'm sick of being cooped up in the air conditioning, and although it was freaking hot outside, it felt good to just be outdoors. My channel would not be possible if it wasn't for engagement from you guys. I read all of your comments, and I know a lot of you have been wondering why I'm not posting as frequently as I used to. I'm going to be a little vulnerable and explain to you why. A few years ago, I was really busting my tail to try to create content and grow my channel. At the same time, we were raising 2 kids, trying to build a custom house and shop by ourselves, and just trying to hold it together like everybody else. We had a couple of really hard years. And I'll be honest, after we moved into the house, I crashed hard. I was so burned out. I knew I couldn't keep up at that same pace, and I needed to find balance. Obviously, teaching others how to build cool stuff will always be in my soul, so I just needed to find a healthier way to do it. Which leads me to introduce the sponsor of this video, BetterHelp. I'm sure many of you have heard of BetterHelp, but for those of you who haven't, BetterHelp is an online platform that helps connect you with affordable and personalized therapy. They are on a mission to make starting therapy easier. If you are feeling burned out or overwhelmed, speaking with a trusted therapist could be really helpful. Fill out the questionnaire online and you will be matched with a therapist in as little as a couple of days. BetterHelp has a network of over 30,000 licensed therapists who can help you manage your mental health and work towards your personal goals. You can switch therapists at any time for no additional cost if it's not the right fit. Speaking with a therapist helped me set priorities. which for me meant slowing down on making videos for a short time while I focused on my own mental health and family. Don't worry, I still have a million big ideas and I'm not going anywhere. I am at a really good place right now and I am excited to continue sharing my projects. Thank you guys for sticking around. If you could use help finding balance in your life, click the link in the description box below or go to betterhelp.com/pneumaticaddict, all one word, and get 10% off your first month of therapy. Now back to the project. In order for the shades to fold nicely and to be able to control them, I need something across the top. I'm going to add what I'm calling a spine. To make the spine, I have several pieces of 1/8 inch thick and 1/2 inch wide aluminum. The plan is to cut 2 strips of aluminum for each spine. I then can fold the fabric up and sandwich the fabric between 2 of those strips. I'm going to have several folds per shade, plus I need a spine on either end. So that means I need lots and lots of aluminum strips. I picked up a bunch of 10-foot lengths from my local metal supply, and I currently have them taped tightly together so I can gang cut them or cut them all at once. This will take a lot less time than cutting each strip individually. To cut the aluminum strips, we are using a cordless portable bandsaw, but aluminum, being non-ferrous, can actually be cut on most woodworking tools, including miter saws and table saws. Just be aware that it'll probably dull your blade a little bit.
Cutting this much aluminum, even with a bandsaw with a metal blade, is slow going, but eventually we got through. I needed to drill 4 holes in each of the 72 spines. That means 288 holes. And it was important that the holes were aligned so I could sandwich pairs together, which you'll see in just a minute. The easiest way to do this was to build a simple jig out of wood, venture over to Bryce's very dirty side of the shop, and borrow his drill press.
I looked at a few options for my shade material. I originally thought about canvas, but that gets really heavy when it's wet. So the next option I came up with is this screen shade thing. It's designed for like balconies if you live in an apartment. It's made out of HDPE and it's woven kind of like a fabric. It blocks most of the light, but it does let some filter through. It also hopefully will allow water to filter through when it rains, the few times a year it rains here, so we don't have to deal with mold or mildew growing on them. It's really inexpensive. I bought 2 50-foot long packs that are 3 foot wide. I think they were like $40 a pack. Since they're 36 inches wide, most people would just need to cut these down to length and then they're ready to go. The spacing between the rafters on our specific pergola is closer to 34 inches, and I just want to be a little extra and give it a nice finished edge and not worry about fraying. So I'm actually going to fold over the linear edges and use my sewing machine to create a nice linear hem on both sides. This is totally optional. If you don't want to sew or can't sew, you can just skip this step. But if you do cut length off of these, I'm guessing the type of woven material it is will need to be sealed somehow. So you might want to use glue or maybe even try heat to seal the edges. If you're worried about that, just leave them intact. I spread out 1 sheet of the fence screen material, so 1 shade. Now I need to fold it up in order to add those spines and create the folds. Each shade is about 12 feet long, and I have determined we are going to add 5 swags in the middle of each. So that means I need 10 aluminum strips, 1 for each side of the spines in the middle, and an additional 2 aluminum strips to support my ends. At this point, I'm going to fold the shade over in half and start marking the locations for those folds. They should be about 24.5 inches apart. I'm using a measuring tape and sewing pins to mark the locations. Then, once everything is marked, I can open up the shade and lay it flat again and start to gather my fold. I create the folds by holding one end of the shade, reaching over and pinching those 2 pinned locations and pulling them back towards that finished edge. And then I can repeat the process by grabbing the next set of pins and pulling the fold towards me as I work towards the opposite end. Once the shade is fully folded and I make sure all those folds are even, I can temporarily hold everything in place using a couple of clamps. Then I can start to address the 1/2 inch aluminum strips for the spine. Since I already hemmed the fabric on either end of the shade, those are going to be the easiest spines to add. All I have to do is slide an aluminum strip into each pocket. To create the spines and hold the folds throughout the middle of the shade, I'm going to use 2 aluminum strips, 1 on either side of the fabric. sure those two aluminum strips are more or less aligned, I can take an awl and stab it through that top piece of aluminum, through the fabric, and out the hole of the second piece of aluminum on this first outside hole. This will help make sure that both strips are totally in alignment. I then use a spring clamp and clamp the end of the two strips together.
Getting the machine screws to push through the fabric was a little tight, but easily done with the assistance of a drill. I then added a nylon locking nut to the other end of the machine screw and tightened it down using an impact driver and a wrench. I worked my way through each of the folds, adding the two spines and screwing them together. Next, I placed a piece of scrap wood under the outside spines and drilled a hole in the center of each, which would accommodate a screw eye. They will come in handy when it comes time to secure the shades to the pergola. At this point, the shades were more or less constructed and it was time to install them. I pushed small black binder rings through the two holes remaining in each spine, to which I then added a black stainless steel carabiner. We then could clip each of the carabiners onto the steel cable. I found it easiest to keep the shades clamped together while they were being mounted, and then I could remove the clamps and unfurl the shade. To hold the shades in place and to prevent them from sliding in the wind, I found these spring-loaded locking cup hooks. I aligned the clip hooks with the screw eyes on the center of each shade, pre-drilled into the pergola beams, and screwed in the cup hooks. All that was left was to hook on the shades, and now we have some protection from the sun. There's some leftover wrinkles in the fabric, which I'm sure will relax after sitting in the sun for a bit.
It's late afternoon, so the sun is coming in at a pretty steep angle. So most of the shade is only on that end of the pergola currently. But during midday, we get almost complete coverage of the entire pergola area.
I'm excited for the weather to finally cool down so we can enjoy some more outdoor time under our new shady pergola.
So the one thing that's not super convenient, and I would love your guys' input on, is the fact that to detach the shades and slide them back, right now I have to get a steps tool and disconnect that clip on the end. Leave a comment with some advice, maybe giving me a solution on how I can easily do that from the ground.
If you want more details on the horizontal fence you see in the backyard, or you want to see our entire modern house that we built ourselves, check out the full Building Modern on a Budget series. And if you like other types of DIY content, check out this video as well. Leave a comment below and let me know which outdoor project you think we need to tackle next. And as always, thanks for watching, guys.